Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. But forevermore, in a certain part of Asia, I'm known, as the White Butcher, but if you want to get there, Hall of Fame, or you even want to have a reasonable facsimile, everybody in this room has got to toughen up. Not just this room, everybody in every room I've ever spoken in front of. You just have to. Well, you don't have to do shit, but I mean, if you say your goal's over here, and you're Attila the Hun or Genghis Khan or somebody, and you realize you're going to have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands casualties, collateral damage. And I told you all this in the beginning. But you hear what you only want to hear. I have a Norwegian lawyer, excuse me. I was about to call him a doctor. I was really going to insult him. I have a Norwegian lawyer, bright as anything, he, when he's representing you in the trial, he's vicious. But when he's dealing with his sick mother, his relatives, his employees, he's a pussycat. This is the beginning of a second phase of your life. I'm going to pass out the thumb drives in due course. And in due course in Britain, or especially Scotland, means sometime between now and never. Because even though mañana was supposedly invented by the Spaniards, passed on to the Mexicans, it was started here in Scotland, mañana meaning tomorrow. Nobody's in a hurry to do a goddamn thing here. Some of you that were in classes that had some superstars. And I've written about almost all of them, except maybe one who has asked me not to publicize his name or his accomplishments. But other than that, you've seen. And some of you have thought to yourself, if you have a half a brain, fuck, that guy was a dipshit. That guy was nothing. That guy wasn't the sweat off my balls, etc., etc. Yet, ergo, they've done, a bunch of deals. Some of you were in the class with, maybe just one of you was in the class with TK, from Mesa, Arizona, which Mesa, Arizona is one of the 3 shitholes. If you're going to have an enema in the world, that's one of the places you stick the pipe. I ran a very successful business from there in the last century. And for those of you that are in and around Arizona, you know what I'm talking about. They didn't have signs when you drove in the city. It says, "Welcome to Mesa." I don't know if they have signs now, or it's still just a blip on the map. And he did $348 million in 11 months after the seminar. $348 million. He's not the best I have, but he's certainly one of the best, no doubt about it. And he sat, I believe. This is pre-corona, so the tables were closer, but he sat right about there. And he and on the YouTubes that he's done, and he came back as Dr. Robinson's doing right now. And he said, Mr. Peña called me this or that, lazy ass, a Mexican half-breed, blah, 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 which is all true. I did all those things. And he went out and did $348 million. Now that's humping. Any questions, not any comments about, apparently all of you have put in your homework. I just checked. I got to recheck that. That's unusual that everybody did, but I'm surprisingly happy. Comments about the movie last night? Yes, sir.
They constantly put their balls on the line, kept on taking risk, and just going into new industries. Vanderbilt, he started with shipping. He could have stayed in shipping, but he went into railroads. And they just wanted to win. They just wanted to beat.
Most of you guys would still be spreadsheeting it. Now, let me see. And you know what I'm talking about. What else about the movie from anyone else? Yes, sir, in the back.
They've stayed focused for really, really long time, sometimes decades, and only because of that they've achieved that level of success.
Well, they were successful both short, intermediate, and long term, but they had chasms. They had mountains. They had all kinds of things that interrupted their success. But they just, they all just kept plowing ahead. I could write a book, 10 volumes, instead of the first 100 million. And the reason why it was called that is because I deemed then a long time ago to make your first 100 million is not easy. I'm not talking about one or those kind of 100 millions, but I mean reasonable currencies. It's not easy, and so that's why I titled it. But I could write 10 volumes about all the mistakes I made, all the quicksand I got in and how I got out. But it all starts. I was fortunate. Not lucky, but fortunate. My first chairman was the former Secretary of the Treasury. And my office was one rock. Rockefeller Plaza, penthouse of one rock. Now, wasn't that hard to close people in that office complex when you're at the top? They were building Rockefeller Plaza when Mr. Anderson, my first chairman. And why did I start with $820? Because he put up $180. He had 18%, I had 82%. And the offices were fucking beyond spectacular. I mean, but it starts with that person. And then it was relatively easy to bolt on some high-profile people onto him. It was fucking damn. I mean, they just fell down like bowling pins when you throw a strike. Of course, I told you all that. And then it was easy to get the Big Eight was then, Big Eight accounting, which transformed into the Big Six. So you know all that. What else about the movie? Yes, sir.
Rockefeller had bodacious goals, so he wanted to supply every family in the nation, and he was able to control 90% by the age of 37.
And of course, Rockefeller IV, who's around, he may have just retired as a senator, but I think he's still around from Virginia, West Virginia, or someplace like that. And he normally he starts his speeches with apologizing for his great-great-grandfather, which I find insulting myself, and how he made some of his money, killing people in unions and stuff like that, which virtually all the big guys did back in those days. Yeah, I mean, and then the government broke him up because they said he was, anti this, anti that, and so they broke up the businesses into 8 or 10 or 12 oil companies. But monopolies have been deemed to be bad, except when you're playing Monopoly. And I told you, when you go out there, use, to the extent that you use commercial finance, normal commercial bank finance, use it like Monopoly money. I told you that at least 25 times. But nobody does. Because if you use it like Monopoly money, the money that you ultimately use from, or if you do use from commercial finance, you'll make better decisions because you won't be afraid. Whether you pay $500 or $1,500 for Park Place in Monopoly, it doesn't make a goddamn bit of difference, does it? But the wiring that you've been supplied with, and we all know who supplied that wiring growing up, doesn't allow you to do that because you're afraid. Even, you're just afraid. And people like TK, myself, Marcus Bauer, weren't and aren't afraid. But sometimes, when Marcus was here a couple years ago, and he was giving his same as Dr. Robinson, he brought his wife, his new wife, and they attended the seminar. And he said that somebody asked him, "What's the worst deal you ever did?" And he says, "I lost €1 million in 1 year." And he says, "In my business, as Mr. Peña said, if you lose money in construction, you should blow your brains out." And I lost €1 million. Then he goes on to, and it's all on YouTube. He goes on to explain how he lost €1 million. And it's pretty remarkable. Of course, he rode a 12-year bull market in property. 12 years. 12 years. Now, it's not so easy to make money in property, in real estate. Later on during the seminar, I'm going to tell you the fourth door of the calamity that's going to happen. Well, I'll say it right now. Commercial real estate is going to go through the fucking toilet. So those of you that have anything to do with commercial real estate, directly or indirectly, it's over. Of course, I told you don't do real estate with your deals, right? How many times did I fucking say that? And then it's the first domino to fall, the first few dominoes to fall are commercial real estate. And then it gets down to your little chicken shit houses you live in. The fucking, outhouses. It's all gone. And some of you are still trying to do deals with real estate. I don't know why, but if it was publicized that commercial real estate value in New York City, Manhattan, has gone down 15 of the last 16 quarters in value. 15 of the last 16. If the people in the world or in the United States knew that there are 75 Empire State Buildings equivalent in property empty in Manhattan. 75 Empire State Buildings empty. Empty! Because the Middle Easterners aren't propping up the prices anymore, which I said 5, 7, 10 years ago. And of course, they don't want to publish that because it'll be even more of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You heard all this shit, though. Yet, you still. What else about the movie? Yes, sir.
I like how Rockefeller had faith in God after his train accident even more. And I feel very much the same about certain things. When they happen, I feel like nothing can stop me.
Well, you've heard this too. There was a lady that was sitting right about in that empty chair a few years ago. She was a managing director for J.P. Morgan. And at the end of the week, or towards the end of the week, and we had a slide then, we don't use it anymore, that had Rockefeller, Jobs, blah, blah, blah. Which one of those icons do you relate the most to? So we're going through this, and now I know your opinion is not worth a shit, so I don't ask the question anymore. But we went through everybody, and she was about the last one. And she says, I relate, and how many traits of the 10 traits of the successful people do you think that you relate the most to? And she said Steve Jobs. Now, I don't remember this, but they say I flew to the table to choke her. I remember choking her, but I don't remember flying there, like in the TV series, The Flash. How fucking delusional. What the fuck are you, I mean, what kind of drugs are you taking? And having known Steve myself, and arguably one of the last guys to ever see him alive. And some of you think that. It's like, I've never done drugs, but I know that pure cocaine, and then they want to dilute it, and they use talcum powder and all kind of other shit to dilute it. Well, that's pure cocaine diluted by a factor of 1,000,000 squared. That's how little she had to do with, or anything remotely close to describing Mr. Jobs. Anything else about the movie? Anything about Dr. Robinson? He's going to get up in a couple minutes, or a few minutes. Yes, sir, in the back.
You somewhat already commented on it, but when his, I think it was Rockefeller's, the senator, his family member, who mentioned about how,
he was embarrassed.
Yeah.
He
I
made
just
excuses
thought,
for
when I
his
seen
great-great-grandfather.
I couldn't believe that he would say, because if he would have done what he thinks he should have done, he would have never got to where he was.
Exactly.
And if he was surrounded by family members like that then.
Yeah, well, the family members then, because I've read a lot about the various icons that the millennials don't look up to those guys unless you happen to be coincidentally part of the QLA program. They don't look up to. I mean, you can't. When I taught university, which was almost 30 years ago, I mean, you couldn't find a guy in the students that looked up to Rockefeller. Jobs wasn't a hot shit then 30 years ago. They didn't. Even then, 30 years ago. So God knows what they say about the poor guys. God rest their souls in hell, most of them. Those aren't, they don't look about like the series is The Men That Made America, right? Which is an old series, it's not new. The kids today don't think that they were detrimental to mankind. They were detrimental to the growth of Homo sapien today. And, I revere a lot of them. One especially, obviously, not so obvious, is Andrew Carnegie. But you're right, the family then, there's a thing on series TV here in Britain called Gilded Age. And it's about a rich family towards the end of the 20th century. It was 1895 leading up to 1900, or everybody kept your mouth shut. If you weren't talked to, you kept silent. That's how I was raised. We're not interested in your opinion, Danny. When you've done something with your life, the implicit in that is that when you've done something with your life, we're interested in what the fuck you got to say. Maybe. And that's why when I was 7 or 8 or 9, I was always talking shit. Just like Muhammad Ali, who used to be Cassius Clay, said, I'm the greatest, and a few other super athletes that said, I'm the greatest, before they were the greatest. I played in a golf tournament with Michael Jordan decades ago when he was a senior in college. And more polite, 40 years ago I wasn't old, but when you're playing golf and you hit the ball off the tee flies someplace, right? Well, he was picking up my tee, but he was talking shit then. None of you people have ever talked shit in your lives. Shit meaning, I'm the greatest, fuck you. I've been saying that since I'm 7 or 8 years old. And then finally, sooner than later, and it was later for me, I didn't become a rock star until I was in my 30s. And I certainly had nothing to brag about early in my life. There's nothing wrong with flapping your mouth. Some of you, as I said in the original seminar, wouldn't say shit if it was in your mouth. We know why. And how's your program worked out for you so far? When I look back at it, I still see my UCLA student back there in the room. To me, he hasn't aged much, so that's good. But I remember exactly what the fuck I told him the first time we met. This is your third time, right? Yes. He's shaking his head, yes. 2 or 3 others, Mr. Manchester back here, because unfortunately, not just you, but you're here so I can beat you in person, but virtually everybody thinks there's a secret sauce. Secret sauce meaning a tip I didn't give you, or Ty Lopez tip. And there isn't any. The only difference is, I used to say 2,000 cold calls to be a millionaire. Now it's 1,400 cold calls. And the 1,400 cold calls is not just because of this one thing, but the generations have gotten very much more adept at using the internet and Zoom fuck, instead of shoe leather. I'm not recommending that, but I'm just saying that the kids have, figured out. And Zoom calls and Zoom board meetings and Zoom interviews, et cetera, have become commonplace. And we can thank Corona for that. So now it's down to 1,400 cold calls. 1,400 cold calls. And you're a short millionaire, and the second deal, you're easily a millionaire. Anything else about anything? Okay. This has changed. It'll take 10 or 20 years for you and the public to wake up that this has changed the world. You still don't get it because you can't say this. I have a double Harvard graduate up here on the wall. He was the youngest mayor in the United States, elected mayor in the United States. His name is Fidel Vargas. And he came here when I think he was 22. And he said, graduation night, amongst several other times, Dan says things, Mr. Peña says things that it's hard for us to dare to even think of. And I blurt them out, which is pretty accurate. Now he, with all his faults, has validated. I didn't need him for fucking validation. I've been around 5 presidents, all swore like drunken sailors. He's made it okay. Everybody in this room still suffers from this, even with Dr. Robinson's success. Baggage. Now, having been to India and having lived there 3.5, 4 years, when Sally and I saw that for the first time with our own eyes, Sally was worried the guy was straining himself. I didn't worry about any of that. And I said, how can you get people to work for nothing and do that? And I've seen bigger loads than this. Bigger. How's this possible? Because that's his way. I mean, it's the only way he's going to get to his goals is, But that's the baggage you were left with. And that's why it's easier to have kids, train kids, because they don't have as much baggage, because their parents didn't have enough time to fuck them up. Now, when the DNA was discovered in the early 50s by 2 guys that got Nobel Prizes for that, and both of them just passed away in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. They said then, and they say now, that there is 0 chance that this was random. No fucking way was the DNA strand random. In other words, by natural selection, Darwin kind of evolution. So if there's no chance whatsoever that this is random, How the fuck did it happen? Well, this is not a religious seminar, but I'll leave you to your own devices. But I figured this out early. Of course, I'm a wannabe altar boy. I wanted to be an altar boy, and I wanted to be a priest. And either it was a great activist evolution or revolution that I didn't become a priest, because I would have been a fucking pope, no question. It was just a big scandal that was announced 2 days ago, where they are putting cardinals and people in jail for the first time for fraud, a 2.5-year investigation and lawsuit. The fines are minimal, 10 or 20,000 euros or whatever. But the Pope is more interested in financial scandals. His next, supposedly, I have connections in the Vatican. Is the fact that he's going to go after the biggest sexual deviants, and there's a shitload of them there. A shitload of them. Surround yourself with the people who push you to do and be better. No drama, no negativity, just higher goals. Everybody in this room has still got toxic parents. Most of you still associate with your parents. I told you what to do. So how sincere or how real was your goals to create generational wealth? Later on this month, we're going to add 7 to the Hall of Fame. They took it seriously. I told you at the beginning, Sally and I moved here to get away from my family, not because they were not the right family, but they weren't right for me creating generational wealth. You know how many weddings and etc., birthday parties Mexican Americans have? Too many. So I moved here. Sally and I didn't talk to our mothers respectively for 7 and 8 years. 7 years me, 8 years Sally. Didn't talk to her mother. You know how hard it is for a daughter not to talk to a mother for 8 fucking years? My mother told me when I was young, a son's a son until he takes a wife, a daughter's a daughter the rest of her life. Now, I didn't know what that meant then. I certainly know what it means now. We had a girl here, was in the casino business about 2 or 3 years ago. She sat right there. And I didn't know this till after the seminar. And she said how toxic her mother was, blah, 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 blah. And then she's rolling up healthcare now. She's successful. And she bumped into Josh Kim at the Bellagio Hotel, the employees' entrance, because she worked there. And she told Josh, who still looks 15, this is for employees and for penthouse owners. And he said, really? Well, I own penthouse 3A, or I forget which one. And she was dumbfounded. And she said, well, how is that? I mean, I know you can't be 15. No, he says, at that time, I think it was 20. And so they went to have a coffee. And I personally think he was hustling her. But anyway, they went to have a good-looking girl, have a coffee. And then a year later, she comes to the seminar. So now she's in the seminar. Seminar's over. And I didn't realize, but Kim had come to get her for a phone call, her mother. She says, I can't get a hold of your mother. Used to call her 10, 20, 80 times a day. And the girl said to her mom, I mean, you must not be reading your emails, but I sent you an email. You're out of my life now. I'll see you in the afterworld. Apparently, her mother had a stroke. Boom, boom. And the girl hung up the phone, came back to I didn't know any of this till after the seminar. And at that time, it was at the end of my last mentor program where you filled out papers. he sent me reports every week. I was so happy I didn't know whether to shit or go blind. Mother didn't die. And to this day, I got in fact, I haven't got a Christmas card from her yet. I'll get a Christmas card, no doubt. She hasn't talked to her mom because her mom is the reason. Just as in your cases, some of your cases. And I realize the ethnicity of certain Asian groups is to take care of your parent. I know all that. But nobody said it was right just because you've done it 10,000 years. And there's sacrifices that have to be made. We're looking for strength, suffering, and then redemption. Everybody that's ever come through the seminar needs redemption. Now, these are some of the guys. I could list the gals, but I haven't. Carnegie, Roosevelt, Hitler, Churchill, Napoleon, Tesla, and me. And I said yesterday, I believe, that there's been somebody that preceded me that had an American and a UK passport that went into Parliament. His name is Winston Churchill. Do you think any of those people thought or cared what anybody thought about them? No. Now, when I first was introduced to the internet by Brian QLA Rose, I was asked, this was 2014, Easter 2014, that who did could I relate to the most? And I said Freud, Patton, and Jack Welch. And I still say that today. I never met Jack. I was at a deal when I'm now, I regret, and remember, regret's a bitch, that I didn't go up and talk to Jack. But anyway, I didn't. I didn't know Freud, but a psychiatrist that I knew until he died studied with Anna Freud, which is Freud's daughter, who is a well-known psychiatrist, and I sure as hell didn't know General Patton. But I revere those three guys. Now, I already said what the fourth door was. Commercial real estate. Yeah.
What is going to be the timeline approximately till it closes?
I don't know that. I'm great at calling things. I was a little lucky when I called negative oil. But if you knew the oil business like I do, there's 1,000 guys that understand the business better than I do. Not one person opened their fucking mouth. Having done business with the Middle Eastern countries, which at one time or another they've all lied about how much oil they're producing, how much oil they're not producing. They've all lied at one time or another about how much oil is in the ground, in reserves, okay? You're going to see a chart in a minute that shows that the United States of America is now the leading oil producer on the planet. 21 million barrels a day. I used to know Khashoggi, not the one that they chopped up in the Turkish embassy. That was his nephew, Khashoggi, who used to be the president of OPEC, which allegedly is the ruling body for the oil industry. Well, 2 or 3 of the main countries, like Russia, for example, aren't a member of OPEC. I've been to Cushing, Oklahoma, where the wet barrels turn into dry barrels, turn into wet barrels. And all these people that are flapping their lips on CNBC, et cetera, don't know cock. And I said I wouldn't be surprised it went negative. And I think I said, I mentioned $24 negative, $20 to $24 negative. I didn't think it'd go to $37 negative. But I'm the only swinging dick on this planet that knew we were going to have negative oil. Nobody else. There's a reason why the 3 largest sovereign funds on the planet come to me for advice. And commercial real estate. There must be a million people that know commercial real estate. They whisper it, though. Now, if I had a big following like Tony Robbins or some of these guys that have, millions, or Elon Musk even, If Donald Trump told and he's got a lot of that empty fucking real estate in Manhattan himself. If Donald Trump, in his either infinite stupidity or infinite wisdom, said what I've told you today about commercial real estate, they'd close the stock exchange down for the panic selling. But nobody's going to say it because everybody's too afraid. You had your hand up? Somebody? Yes, sir, in the back.
Speaking of commercial real estate, I met with the CFO last Friday. He's
who CFO of what?
Former large public company.
Okay.
So he showed me shopping center that is selling that he is advising the deal. So they're selling at a 40% discount to 2018 values. So I'm not sure if the real estate investment trust is doing a redemption fire sale.
It's going to go to zero. You understand that with your UCLA degree? We have guys doing deals right now for $1, €1, £1. I told you when you were at the seminar, didn't I? You ain't seen nothing yet. If they're doing it at a 40% discount, it needs to be bought at a 90% discount. I'm just guessing, and my guess is better than most studies, that coincidentally, that's the amount of equity still left in the deal. Which means they got some bullshit justification. You guys don't know hard times. And I'm maybe the only one old enough to have had parents that lived through the Depression. Anybody's parents lived through the Depression? No, okay. Remember that, I don't use it anymore, but remember that 300-foot tsunami thing that takes out New York City that I used to have on my YouTube? It's best for us. Best time for us. But that's the fourth door. And now, considering I've been so accurate, you'd think more people would listen to me. But the reason they don't listen to me is because to give me credence would mean most of the businesses right now should just turn the key, turn to cash, like Sally and I have been in cash a long, long time, and run like thieves in the night. It's like when Sally and I spent a good deal of time. Well, I spent a lot of time in the Middle East because when I was partners with the third largest sovereign fund, Kuwait, and Sally and I spent time in Israel. And when you talk to these people, I'm not saying it was just a matter of time before this Gaza thing would happen, but it's just a matter of time. But they've been fighting 2,000 fucking years. So that's not a good deal. And it's certainly not the QLA model, and you haven't learned a goddamn thing. But it's coming. Yes, sir.
For the businesses that require a decent amount of real estate to be able to operate in, do you still recommend we
No,
lease them back?
no, you don't. You skip those. And you come back to them when you've got money. Remember, I use Andres Milner, when I say a typical German Nazi, I'm not being derogatory. If they had gotten Hitler out of bed at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd be speaking fucking German here today. First deal, 700 to 1.2 million. Second deal, 1.2 to 1.8. And by the time you got 30, 40 deals like he does, you got 70 to 100 million, 70 million in his pocket. And there's nobody in this fucking room that's got anywhere near that. The closest one is Tremaine. And he's kind of, I get to beat him. Full disclosure, I'm his chairman. But he, for whatever reason, he kind of followed QLA, not 100%, but he followed it up because he's Canadian. And the Canadians are all thick as shit. So, I mean, he was able to take advantage of them, just like I did back in the day. God bless you. Allah be with you. Now, if there weren't enough problems in the world, every 2 or 3 years they come up with something like this. 48,000-year-old virus found in Siberian ice, snow. No cure for it. Now see, I bet you nobody in this room even knows this. Anybody? Of course not. Oh, yeah, you do, but anyway. How is it you don't know? Remember, there's 5 things I told you to read when you left here. Nobody even remembers them, let alone reads them. Why? Oh, that's TK. God love him. Fuck. $348 million. I'm going to end on this note and turn it over to my mentee colleague. Full disclosure, I'm his chairman as well. But guys, even in Manchester, you can do this. Since you were here, when were you here? September 22. Oh, it's okay. A little more than a year. I've taken, and I'm getting out of the chairman business, but I took this guy on, a doctor, and he's rolling up healthcare in Manchester. Methodical. I mean, if there's a hiccup in the sentence, he hiccups. I mean, and guess what? I don't have to tell you the rest, do I? Okay, any questions on anything? Yes, sir.
What are the 5 things we should read?
What are the
5 things we should read?
Now you want to know. Does anybody remember any of them? What? No, fuck Amazon, where it breathes. I know. Okay. Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, the quarterly NATO reports on what's the status of the world, both economically and blah, blah, blah. The Robb Report, and I suggested that you all subscribe to that. Sally and I have been to a couple of Robb Report, let me digress a second, events, one of which was at Wyoming thing that I mentioned last night, and the other one was just Boca Raton, where Sally got to drive Formula One race cars. And the guys that go there are presumably wealthy. And I told the president of Robb Report, you know, I used to buy year subscriptions in the Robb Report back in the 90s for 2 or 3 years, and I never got a thank you note. He says, no way. I said, yes way. Well, I still haven't got a fucking thank you note, and that was 5 weeks ago, but because it changed your mindset. Because as opposed to you're looking at like a lot of guys buy whatever that Mercedes is. What's a fancy Mercedes, supposedly? No. Yeah. That's dog shit. I wouldn't have my fucking caddy driving that thing. That's why I haven't had a Rolls Royce since I'm 25 years old. That I couldn't afford. And so backing up, I should have cut a deal with Rolls Royce. I should have cut a deal with Robb Report in writing. I should have cut a deal. I should have got a real estate broker's license, both in the UK and the US, so I could have gotten fees for all this shit that you kids have done. But I didn't, okay? It's not a big regret of mine. And the last thing, I said that Scientific American. That was the 5th thing. But nobody reads them. And Scientific American is boring. Fuck. I mean, No wonder I didn't do well in the sciences. But the report, it's a year old now. They should be coming out with another one this month. The United Nations said that it would take us 3,700 years if we stopped, all the things that the greenies say to stop doing, all the things, the Greenpeace. If we stopped today, January 1, this coming January 1, it would take us over 3,700 years to end pollution. 3,700 years to end pollution. And the last university I spoke at, one of the last universities, I asked some of the kids, if you knew it was going to take over 3,000 years, fuck that, we wouldn't be marching around embassies. That's somebody else's problem. But they make it, they want you to believe that we're going to solve this shit overnight. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I now give you Dr. Robinson. I'm going to thank you very much for coming. And he's been here before. John, thank you very much. I'm going to leave you to your own devices.